Hello there. Today I am showing a new riser. It's not ILF yet. This is intended to be an ambidextrous ILF riser. It is unfortunately not yet made out of T60 aluminum, which is my ultimate goal. It is made of one of my favorite hardwoods, not for the aesthetics, but for the toughness. I make my walking canes out of it. I make other things. I'll show you the club that I made out of it in a minute. But here it is. So right now I have the Samick Discovery limbs taped on there, only for illustrative purposes, so you can see kind of how it will appear. There is a profile view, there is a behind view, and here is a frontal view. So I'll cut the video here and get the tape off so you can get a nice clear picture of this. But I'm happy with it. I think it's going to work really well. See you in a moment. But here is the pure riser. And as mentioned, for purposes of ruggedness and just sheer badass toughness, this is one of my very favorite woods. It's my favorite accessible wood. Now, if I could get lignum vitae, I think I'd take that, or cabracho. Cabracho, I think, is Spanish for axe breaker, and it is an utterly brutal wood, but very, very difficult to get a hold of in any kind of significant size. Another thing I'll do is I'll show you the other half of this piece of wood as it was before I made this, so you can see what I used to do this. Now, this wood, if you're wondering what it is Cumaru. And there is good Cumaru and bad Cumaru. The other section of the video which will precede this, I'll show you some strength tests. You can look at one of the first videos I did where I take a Cumaru thumb ring and give it a hammer test. Now, I didn't test other rings for comparison, but I can tell you that pretty much every ring I've tested, whether it be Ipe, Cocobolo, pretty much any other wood, they break fast, within a couple of strikes. I just beat the snot out of that Cumaru ring, and it didn't break for a long time. Catalox is another good wood. I'd happily make one of these out of Catalox. Catalox, though, is still not quite as tough as this. Brazilian ebony is tough, but I don't think it's as tough as Catalox. I think it took 6 strikes to break the Catalox ring, whereas this took about 20. And Ipe will often break in the first strike. But as I say, there is good Cumaru and bad Cumaru. Some Cumaru it's very brittle. It's extremely dense. You pick it up and you think, man, this must be stronger than steel. And you put it under stress and it just snaps. I found that the pale Cumaru, when it's rough cut, there's a lot more white. And again, I'll show you some of that in a bit. The really dark Cumaru, which would probably be about as it is with this wax finish, but maybe a little bit darker with tones of red. It's pretty, but I find that that's the weakest. So if you're looking for a good piece of Cumaru that's going to be tough, when you see it rough cut at the lumber shop or online, it'll have more white, kind of a white tannish color. So again, this is intended to be ambidextrous, shelfless as always, and you can see this is the grit, and I thinned it out a bit here. That might end up becoming thinner, but with any non-laminated wood, you have to be careful. So far I trust this wood, and I suspect you might trust it too after you see what I'm going to do with it. It is not perfect, but it's as good as I could eyeball it. I didn't get fancy, and I'm going to have to find someone to help me make the precision cuts, if even necessary. I've never built anything ILF before. I plan on ordering the hardware. I'm going to skip the bolt-on limb thing. The only limbs I have are the Samick Discovery and their ILF. So I want to get the hardware, attach that onto this, and I think it's going to work really well. So I won't bore you anymore with this. I'll give you one more look at it. I'm very pleased with this. It came out good. The grip, for me, is great. And it's a solid wood, and I think it actually looks nice. And it will look even nicer when I really finish it. I didn't want to overdo the finish because of whatever mangling might take place, and when I get the limbs on, I'll have a sense for the feel, whether I can refine it and take off a little bit more here and there, lighten it, make it look nicer so it doesn't have these big lumps at the limb mounts. But on to the next video sections. Okay, so what I have here is a remnant of the cut that I made. Now if you look here, let me double check what we can see here. So down here you have roughly 4 millimeters, tapers up to the thicker spot, which gets to about 6 millimeters on each side. And in here you have, at the very fattest part, it's a bit over 1.5 inches. So this is not designed for the purpose. It's simply a piece of scrap that I had. These are very thin. You can certainly bend this. Now what I'm going to do is give this a kind of strength test. I'm going to place it here, and I'm going to stand on it. I am 150 pounds. Now, so I don't mash myself, that's one. Standing on that with one leg, 150 pounds. What I have here are 2 50-pound kettlebells. I used to be able to curl these 16 times with each arm until I got tendonitis. Can't do that no more. So now I will be 250 pounds when I stand on this. I suspect it will break. Hopefully I don't injure myself when it does break. There we go, 250 pounds. Not even a sign of breakage. All right. Now that we have that done, I'm going to get more violent with it. And I have eye protection on, so don't worry about that. I have a trusty old sledgehammer. It's unmarked, so I don't know how many pounds it is, but it's quite beefy. You can see, compared to my hand, it's a good beefy sledgehammer. Now this is a springy wood, so it's probably going to jump when I strike it. Hopefully not at the camera. So that strike broke it right there, right about at the 6 millimeter point. And that is what I'd expect. That's a sledgehammer. As far as breaking this with that sledgehammer, I doubt I could. However, I will try. I think it'll break at the other end now. It's been a while since I used a sledgehammer. Sorry about the aim. All right. No sign of cracking. None. Let's give it another whack. Well, that definitely did it, and it flew away. Let me go retrieve that piece and we'll see where it broke and how it broke. All right. That I don't think I can make much sense of. But we can see here where that broke, and that's probably a 1/2 inch. And it took several strikes. The breakage ends right about here. There's a little bit of splitting here. but not very substantial. I'll go ahead and smash this one more time and see if I can get it to break in the thickest part, or even near the edges where it's supported. I am slightly worried about the camera, but I'm going to take a chance. No breakage. It's smashing it pretty well, so that took a big gouge out of it there. Okay. Give this one more whack. One more proper whack. Okay, so it's beginning to split a little bit, but I think about this time you see what kind of wood we're dealing with. This here, I have to check once again what the focus is doing. When I spoke of the more tan whitish color, this is a little bit darker than some of the better pieces I've had. I honestly think some of the other pieces I've had wouldn't have broken so easily. But if you look at this side, which is a bit more finely cut or sanded perhaps, it's darker. The rough cuts are pale. That, in my experience, is what you want to look for when you're searching for a good piece of Cumaru. I have one more piece. This is thin, and I think this is a good test piece. So far, this is not the toughest piece of Cumaru I've found. I will put the calipers on this so we have an idea of what we're dealing with. At the thickest part, it is approximately 17 millimeters. At the very edge, we have 5 millimeters on this thin edge. So that gives you some kind of idea of the thickness of this. Once again, I'm going to place this here, and I'm going to stand on it. I don't think I didn't bring a tape measure, but I'm going to see approximately how much of a gap we have. This caliper here is 4 inches, so we have a little bit more than 4-inch gap. I'd say probably 4.5 inch, probably 4 3/4 gap here. So that's a 4 3/4 gap on that wood, or between the two support blocks. And once again, I'm going to grab the 50-pound kettlebells, which make me 200 pounds. I'll step in the center, and I'll put 200 pounds of pressure on that, and I will go up and down. I'm going to drop this on there, kind of. No splits, no cracks. Now, as far as science goes, I'm not much of a scientist, but that probably conveys some of the attributes of this wood and why it's one of my favorites. So that's what that riser is made of. It's made of the other one of these. This happened to have enough length on this board that I can make 2 17-inch risers. And by the way, I didn't mention it, that is supposed to in the end be exactly 17 inches. And I can get one more riser out of this, or someone else can. So I'm going to clip here, and I'll show you the Howdy Club. Alright guys, this is the Howdy Club. It's a club that you don't want to join. Probably best being a Freemason. This is pretty much that. It has a bit of an edge on it. It has a flat back, and of course, as usual, I put a sloppy leather grip on it. But it does really help having that grip, partially for the shock of hitting harder objects, and I think it adds a bit to the grip. This is pretty strong. This is a piece of PT pine 4x4. And you'll see here Not even a mark. Well, it kind of takes off the finish a bit. Double check the zoom again. But no dents in this wood. Of course, it put substantial dents into the corner of this. But that's the Howdy Club. You probably make a fish go to sleep with that if you really needed to. All right. That's pretty much the end of this. Get the camera kind of generally pointed. I don't have the skills. At least I don't know if I have the skills, but I don't think I have the skills for the precision finish work on that riser. I expect it will require a laser to make the perfect alignment, for the dovetail area, if that's what you call that, and the limb alignment, because I'm certainly not going to have lateral limb adjustment on this. So if you have any pointers, if you have advice on the best place to get the hardware, I was thinking Lancaster, as well as a method to get that precise. And I wanted to duplicate the objective angle of the Samick Discovery, because that's just one of the finest bows I've ever had post-modification. After I took off that shelf, I just love it. It's a 45-pound limb set, and I had been pulling 55 pounds and I didn't even know. It's that smooth. From 45 to 55, it just doesn't even stack. It's a sweet bow. So I want to keep those angles, but then I have to think about the brace height as well and what that's going to do to the brace height. This is tricky. It's trickier than the normal stuff I do. There's some thinking involved, and I'm not always good at that. So if you have any input, any advice, please leave a comment, or also look at the channel description and feel free to contact me anytime. That's it.